My stepdaughter secretly tried to sell my house to her biological father, and my wife was helping her the whole time. I uncovered the plan before they could pull it off. What happened next destroyed my marriage and shocked the entire family. Hello, Reddit I plus here. I never imagined I'd be writing something like this, but I genuinely need outside opinions because my entire life has unraveled in less than a week. I'm 49 years old. My wife, Melissa, is 47, and we've been married for 14 years. She had a daughter from a previous relationship, Chloe, who's now 25. Her biological father, Bill, disappeared before Chloe started kindergarten. According to my wife, he couldn't keep a job, constantly borrowed money, and chose drinking over being a father. When Melissa and I got together, Chloe was just 11. I never tried to replace her dad, but I was always there. I attended every school play, every parent meeting, every birthday, every graduation, and every soccer game. I paid for braces, helped with homework, taught her how to drive, and even covered most of her college tuition. Whenever anyone asked, I introduced her as my daughter because that's how I felt. The house has always been mine. I bought it 6 years before I met Melissa. It's a 4-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing extravagant, but it's fully paid off now because I spent nearly 2 decades working overtime to clear the mortgage early. When we got married, I kept the title in my name because my attorney recommended it. Melissa agreed it made sense since I'd purchased it before we met. That decision may have saved me. Last Thursday, I left work early because I wasn't feeling well. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed 3 unfamiliar cars parked outside. At first, I assumed Melissa was hosting friends. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A middle-aged man I'd never met was walking through my living room with another couple. Chloe was leading them around the house, pointing at the kitchen and opening bedroom doors like a real estate agent. I walked inside and asked, "What exactly is going on?" Everyone froze. The couple looked uncomfortable. The older man smiled awkwardly before introducing himself. "I'm Bill." The name hit me instantly. Bill, Chloe's biological father, the man who hadn't bothered raising her. I asked why complete strangers were walking through my house. Before Bill could answer, Chloe stepped between us. "We're just looking." I asked, "Looking at what?" She shrugged. "The house." I looked at Melissa. She wouldn't even meet my eyes. Then Bill said something I'll never forget. "It'll be mine soon enough." For a second, I honestly thought it was some terrible joke. It wasn't. I told everyone to get out. Bill laughed. Chloe rolled her eyes. Melissa whispered that I was embarrassing everyone. That was the moment I realized I was the only person in my own house who had no idea what was happening. After they left, I demanded an explanation. Melissa finally admitted she'd been talking with Bill for several months. According to her, he'd fallen on hard times and needed a fresh start. I asked what that had to do with my house. She looked me straight in the eye and said something that completely changed how I saw my marriage. "We thought it would be better if Bill bought the house. That way it stays in Chloe's family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I reminded her that I owned the house. She simply replied, "You're her stepfather. Bill is her real father." Those words hurt more than I can describe. 14 years, countless sacrifices, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent helping raise Chloe, reduced to one sentence. "You're just the stepfather." I slept in the guest room that night, but I couldn't sleep at all. Something told me this wasn't just an idea they'd been discussing. Something much bigger was happening behind my back. I hired a lawyer. Before confronting them, and what we found was even worse. The next morning, I called in sick. Not because I was ill, because my instincts were screaming that I wasn't being told the whole truth. Instead of arguing with Melissa, I contacted a real estate attorney. It turned out to be the smartest decision I've ever made. He immediately asked whether I'd signed anything recently. I hadn't. Then he suggested checking whether anyone had attempted to prepare documents involving my property. That afternoon, we discovered someone had drafted a purchase agreement listing Bill as the buyer. The seller? Me. Only I had never seen it, never signed it, never agreed to sell. The attorney assured me the paperwork wasn't legally valid, but whoever prepared it clearly expected my signature to come later. Then things became even stranger. I reviewed our home security system. Months earlier, Melissa had convinced me to disable the exterior cameras because they were making guests uncomfortable. I hadn't thought twice about it. Now I realized why. Neighbors later told me Bill had been stopping by regularly while I was at work. Sometimes Chloe was with him, sometimes Melissa, sometimes all 3. One neighbor even assumed we'd already sold the property because Bill kept telling everyone he was getting the house. My attorney advised me not to confront anyone yet. Instead, we changed every online password connected to the property, secured my financial accounts, ordered copies of every document involving the house, and reactivated every security camera. Then I checked our joint savings. Nearly $38,000 was missing. Melissa claimed she'd been helping Chloe with personal expenses. Bank records showed multiple transfers to an account belonging to Bill. I felt physically sick. The man who abandoned his daughter was now living off money I'd earned. That evening, I quietly installed new cameras without telling anyone. I wanted answers. I got them sooner than expected. Just 2 nights later, while I was working late, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. Bill was standing in my driveway. Melissa opened the front door. Chloe let him inside. None of them knew I was watching everything live from my phone. Then Bill smiled, looked around my living room, and said the words that convinced me my marriage was already over. Once he signs the papers, we'll finally have what's ours. At that moment, I stopped thinking like a husband. I started thinking like a man preparing for war. I let them believe I was clueless, while my lawyer prepared everything. For the next 10 days, I acted like nothing had changed. I went to work. I came home. I ate dinner with Melissa. I nodded politely whenever Chloe stopped by. Inside, though, I was documenting everything. My attorney instructed me to avoid emotional confrontations and let the evidence speak for itself. The new security cameras recorded every visit Bill made to my house. One afternoon, he actually walked through my garage measuring the walls. Another day, he brought a contractor who discussed remodeling the kitchen. Neither of them had permission to be there. Then we uncovered something that made my attorney's face go pale. Melissa had emailed a real estate agent asking how ownership of my house could be transferred after convincing my husband to sign. The agent replied that the owner had to agree voluntarily. Melissa answered, "We'll get him there." That email became one of the strongest pieces of evidence in my divorce case. The final straw came the following Saturday. I was supposedly working overtime. Instead, I parked 2 streets away and watched. Bill arrived first, then Chloe, then Melissa. A few minutes later, another couple showed up. Bill shook their hands and proudly announced, "This is the property." He was trying to sell my house before he even owned it. I walked up the driveway. Everyone turned toward me. Bill's smile disappeared. "What are you doing here?" Melissa asked. "I live here." Nobody spoke. I looked directly at the couple. "I'm sorry you've wasted your afternoon, but this home isn't for sale." Bill stepped forward. "It will be once your wife talks some sense into you." I laughed. "No, it won't." He moved closer. "You don't understand." "No," I replied calmly. "You don't." I reached into my pocket and handed him an envelope. He looked confused. "So what's this?" "My attorney asked me to give it to you personally." He opened it. His face immediately lost all color. Inside was a formal trespass notice, informing him he was no longer allowed on my property. "If you step foot here again," I said, "I'll call the police." Melissa exploded. "You had lawyers involved? For almost 2 weeks. You've been spying on us." "No, I've been protecting my property." Chloe yelled that I was destroying the family. I looked at her and quietly said, "I wasn't the one trying to steal someone's home." She slapped me across the face. The silence afterward was deafening. The couple left immediately. Bill cursed under his breath before driving away. Melissa and Chloe followed him. That was the last time any of them entered my house. Or so I thought. 2 nights later, around 1:30 in the morning, my security alarm woke me. Someone was trying to unlock the back door. I checked the camera. It was Bill. I immediately called the police. He claimed Melissa had given him permission to enter. The responding officers asked one simple question. "Do you own this property?" Bill couldn't answer. I showed the deed, my identification, and the trespass notice. Bill was escorted off the property in handcuffs after arguing with the officers and refusing to leave. Melissa called me heartless. I told her she could explain that to the divorce judge. The next morning, I officially filed for divorce. I also closed our joint accounts, following my attorney's advice, and moved Melissa's remaining belongings into a storage unit that I'd prepaid for 3 months. She cried. She begged. She promised to cut Bill out of our lives. But it was too late. This hadn't been one mistake. It had been months of lies. Months of secret meetings. Months of planning to take the one thing I'd spent 25 years earning. The divorce took nearly 9 months. During discovery, more secrets surfaced. Melissa had secretly loaned Bill over $46,000 from our savings. She had told Chloe that the house would eventually belong to her anyway, so convincing me to sell was just speeding up the process. The judge didn't appreciate that explanation. Although the house had always been my separate property, Melissa still tried arguing that she deserved part of it because she'd lived there for years. The court disagreed. She received a fair share of our marital assets, but the house remained entirely mine. Bill got nothing. The trespass order stayed in place. His financial problems eventually forced him into bankruptcy. As for Chloe, she refused to speak to me for nearly a year. Then one evening, I received an unexpected message. She wanted to meet. We sat in a small coffee shop for almost 3 hours. For the first time, she admitted the truth. Bill had spent months convincing her that I was selfish. He promised that if he owned the house, she'd inherit it someday. Instead, once everything fell apart, he disappeared again, just like he had when she was a little girl. She apologized through tears. She admitted I'd been the only father who had actually shown up for birthdays, graduations, broken hearts, and late-night emergencies. I accepted her apology, but I also told her something I'd learned the hard way. Love can forgive, trust has to be rebuilt. We're slowly rebuilding our relationship now, one conversation at a time. Melissa, however, never apologized. Last I heard, she and Bill split up, after only 6 months because he started asking her for more money. Some people never change. As for me, I still live in the same house. The same front porch, the same backyard where Chloe learned to ride a bike. Only now, every evening when I lock my front door, I remember one lesson this ordeal taught me. Never ignore the first sign that someone thinks your generosity is their entitlement.